Hi, I'm Jess.
And I'm Lucas.
And welcome to another episode of Dose of Pharma. Today we are joined by Diana Tran, who is a clinical trials coordinator, and we'll be discussing what is involved in this role and the skills required to excel in the field. To begin, Diana, would you be able to tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, so my name is Diana. I did my bachelor degree in pharmaceutical science at Monash. And so after my undergrad, I went on to do honours and just did it all in the lab. And after that, I was kind of just went with the flow and I just continued on to my PhD. But after maybe like 6 months, I decided I wanted to pursue clinical trials. And I've been there for maybe 7 months now.
So what are clinical trials and where does it sit in drug discovery?
It sits towards the end of the drug discovery pipeline. So obviously after, there's a drug candidate that's been optimized and it's gone through a lot of testing on animal cells, it will later get tested on humans. And so my job is to help coordinate everything that goes on with that. So this would include recruiting patients and just a lot of just organizing their doses and all that sort of stuff.
Can I ask what drove you to changing the career pathway so suddenly?
I think I've always just been very unsure and indecisive about what I wanted to do. Even during year 12 when we had to choose, I had no idea. I left it to the last minute and we just had one speaker that came in, spoke about doing, I think he was doing medicinal chemistry at Monash, and then that ended up just being my first preference. But while I was doing my PhD, I was just working on a lot of cells and it didn't really seem that intriguing, and I think I felt very bored, and I was like, I'd rather see these results in patients where they're actually making a difference. And so that's how I got here.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you decided that you wanted to move into a field where you'll be able to interact with more people in real life on your job rather than just working behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So do you spend much time interacting with patients, or is what you do not direct with them, but just organizational?
I spend a little too much time with patients. So we actually become the primary contact between the patient and the doctors and just the whole study. So the first person, if they have any questions, the first person they'll ask is us. We kind of give them our personal number and everything, so they can pretty much just contact us any time of the day, which is not always the best to put it nicely. But yeah, it's a lot more patient contact than I think you would think, but in saying that, it's a lot more paperwork and brain time than I'd hoped for.
So what kind of problems do you deal with when dealing with the patients?
Well, because, there's a whole variation of people and, people have different personalities, behaviors. You get some really difficult patients and, obviously they have so I work in hematology and a lot of the patients will have blood cancers. I guess you'd feel, sympathetic, but also if they're being, rude to you, it's hard to. But yeah, you do get a lot of difficult patients where they kind of just demand you to, do this, do that, because, they can't do anything. So I think that's just the main issue with working with some patients. But I'd say that most of them are lovely.
So were there any instances where you felt like you learned a lot from the patients, or is it every time you interact with the patients it's just a routine to you, or is it very different every day?
It depends on the patient. Like some patients are really nice, but it's a lot of just small talk, or it'll be explaining, what happens next, what happens after we do this and that. Whereas with other patients, it's you get some patients that are like, dentists, or they're just really far up in like different fields, and they just like talk about that sort of stuff. So you get to learn a lot about their fields and stuff like that. But other than that, it's a lot of small talk.
Yeah, it seems like a good job if like you want to meet a lot of people and like getting to know just like different people's experiences. Yeah, with that amount of small talk.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what's like your favorite part of your role?
I think my favorite part would just be watching them get better. Some patients have like a very good response to the drug, and they just become very grateful, and I don't know, it's nice to see, because at the beginning you see them, they're just very sick and frail, and then by the end of it, or not even toward the end of it, like they're just you just see they're so much healthier.
Wow. So how many studies were you able to be involved in so far?
So far it's been on and off. Like you'll have one, and then new people come in, you'll give those away, you take on new ones. So
Yeah.
On and off will be like maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah. So do you like oversee the study from start to finish, or do you just pick it up from a certain time point?
It really depends. Generally, our whole role will be seeing them from start to finish. But because I've only come in 6 months, I haven't gotten a brand new trial, so I haven't seen what it's like to the beginning of the trial and what we need to do. I've kind of been thrown into just the middle. I don't think it's that much extra. Like I still get to recruit patients onto the study and see if they're eligible. And then I do go through the whole process of like, organizing their dosing schedules and all that stuff.
Yeah, so you mentioned like you interact directly with patients a lot. So what does like a typical day in your like role as a clinical trials coordinator look like?
Typical day would be, so we may have some potential patients that are eligible for the study. So there's a certain criteria they have to meet, and we go through what we call screening processes. And so initially they'd have to sign a consent form with the doctor. So they'd have to come in, read everything and sign. And then after they'd go through a lot of blood tests, scans and all that, just to get some results and see if they fit the criteria. And then after that, they'll start their treatment. So this could be either infusions or oral drugs. And most of the patients I've been working with are oral drugs. And so what we generally do is we schedule in a visit with the doctor, and before that patients will get their bloods done. And I guess the doctors just check those bloods, see if they're okay to start the treatment. And then you just coordinate all their scans as well. So we call each time they come in, we call them cycles. So each cycle they might do a scan and some bloods, or like bone marrow procedures. And then after the doctor review, after they've gotten their treatment, we test their vitals as well. And then it's a lot of data entry. I would actually say like 80% of the job is like data entry and filing.
Right. So it's more like admin work.
A lot of admin work.
So do you play around with like just Microsoft Excel, or is there like a particular database that you have to use?
Microsoft Excel, and there are like a range of databases as well. Not all of them are great, but it works, I guess.
Usable. So do you think you prefer that, or rather than interacting with like the patients?
I think you just have some days where you just want to sit and just do data entry, kind of. I think it just depends on my mood. So sometimes when I'm with patients, I feel like the day does go by a lot quicker. And data entry is always, it's never fun. But also I get to sit and just not have to walk around.
Yeah,
because it is a lot of moving, more so than I thought, because because I work in the hospital, each building has like a different thing. So one building will be for bloods, one building will be for CT scans or something. So it's a lot of walking around.
And get your step count up.
Yeah.
I suppose it's like any job, it's good to have like a balance of like different activities, because if you do anything too much and it just gets a bit repetitive and boring. So it's good to have the mix between talking to people and like the data entry.
Yeah.
Are there like other roles in like the clinical trials like area? Like, do you encounter people with different jobs, and what are those like roles like?
Yeah, definitely. So there are a few other roles. I'm not too familiar, but the ones we work with most are called clinical research associates. So essentially, to my knowledge, what I think they do is so after we input all the data and stuff, they go back and they check to verify everything, to see if it's done right, and they kind of just make sure we follow the protocol. So the protocol is pretty much like our Bible, like everything we don't know, we just go to it. Each study has their own protocol, and it will just tell us, what do we have to do for this month, this day, what happens if a patient overdoses, what do we do, and that sort of thing. And yeah, so they just ensure that we're following that properly. And I know they communicate with us and the sponsor as well. So the sponsor is pretty much the company that they fund the trials. And I think he can also work for the sponsor as well. And I think what they do is they probably help, produce the protocol for us. But that's all I know about the roles.
Yeah, so you've only been there for a few months now, so it takes a while to pick up on like what everyone else is doing as well, and you're still picking up on like what your role is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's a very like structured workplace, because you've got to submit like the trial protocol at the start, so you've got to follow that. So it sounds very like what you've got to do, and it's very structured, which suits a lot of people's personalities, I think.
Yeah, it's like you don't really have to think. It's not like PhD where it's why do I do this? Like, why is this happening? It's do this, and that's it. So I think that was like half the reason why I wanted to move on to trials, because it's less critical thinking.
Yeah. It is quite difficult for a researcher to like manage and maintain their own research.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of like skills do you think you've picked up in this role that's different than what you were doing in your PhD?
I'd say there are some skills that are similar. So for one, organization. So in PhD, you do have to be organized with everything you do. You have to coordinate your assays and all your reading papers and all that stuff. And with this, it's quite similar. So because you have multiple trials, and each trial can have like either 2 to like 30 patients on it. And then some could be coming in every 3 months, some every month, or some every week. And also, like, it's not only that, some patients have different doses as well. So that's something you have to keep on top of. So I'd say organization is a really big theme in both, which is quite unfortunate for me because I'm not that great. But but this role has helped me become more organized. I keep a calendar with like every single thing I do and constant reminders. And just with patients, like things are always changing. Like they don't, like some of them don't just have, a blood cancer, they'll have like other issues like hypertension or diabetes or something like that. And so those are the things you have to look out for, because that is, if one of those things get worse, that affects their trial drug as well.
Yeah.
I feel like I've just gotten on a tangent.
That's fine.
Actually, like, how do you manage to like remember all the particular traits or diseases that individual patients have?
So for each study, we keep a spreadsheet for each patient, and we'll list down all their medications that they're taking, all their side effects that they've had on the study, and we track when they start and stop. And I do keep a spreadsheet as well of all the patients, and just like to outline, you know, which drugs they're taking, and just all that sort of stuff. And it does get like a bit hard because usually when patients will come in for bloods before their doctor review, they'll come into St. Vincent's. But, you know, recently with COVID and everything, no one's coming in. Everyone's doing their bloods near home. So you also have to, you know, remember where they're doing their bloods as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's adapting to the changes that COVID.
I'm kind of liking it now.
So do you mostly work from home now, or do you still like go down to St. Vincent's a lot?
Working from home has been my dream, but I haven't been able to do that. No, I'm still going in every day. Everything's just as normal. It's just that phone, like the reviews are just over the phone now, and we're just sending the medication straight to the patient's house. I feel like nothing's changed that much.
Talking to like patients over the phone is definitely like a different form of communication than face to face, because you don't get all those like body language signals and all that subconscious stuff that you pick up on that you don't get over the phone that you do get in person. So does that like really test like your communication skill, and is that like another skill that you really have to develop working in clinical trials?
I'd say talking on the phone, it's not that much different. And also I've noticed that because I don't have to see them, I actually don't have to talk with them that much. So the only times I really have to talk to them is during the doctor reviews, when we just do like a 3-way call or something, or when they're calling me about their schedule or something like that. But communication is like a key skill for this role, because you're talking to, you know, doctors, patients, and like, you know, everyone else that's working in the hospital, like pathologists and all that. And obviously, like I'm like super shy, super introverted. So this was like a huge like step for me. I think as long as like you actively listen and you have understood everything they've said, then communicating is fine. And like I said before, like the only issue is, you know, when you have those really difficult patients where like, you know, some patients might not have the best English as well, so that becomes like a huge barrier. But there's a lot to say about it.
It's a learning curve. Yeah.
Like making sure you take the time to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes even when you tell them something as well, they don't listen. So that becomes a big issue. And I think a huge issue with this role is that because like patients think, you know, you're working for them, you have to do everything they say. And sometimes you tell them things that, because you pretty much know everything about the study, you come across the same problems all the time as well. And sometimes the patients just won't believe you. So, you know, they're rude to you, but you kind of just have to tell the doctor to back you up. So I think that's, you know, a bit of a downside for this role.
Yeah. Especially because like you're looking out for their health and what's best for them, and then they're not agreeing. So that must be frustrating sometimes.
So how are you able to keep your energy up throughout the day? Especially like, I know as introverts, you like normally your energy is drained when you're interacting with a lot of people. And I know that like at the end of a long day at uni, I probably want to just stay in my room and just relax for the rest of the day. So
pretty much, I guess it's Some of the patients are really nice, and that does give you motivation to like talk to them and want to be nice to them and everything. But there have been times where you get yelled at by patients as well, and that's obviously never the best. And I still haven't really found a way to deal with that. So I've asked around, and everyone just says to be firm, or it is what it is. It happens. You just have to deal with it. So when you get patients that are more difficult, it does drain you a lot. And I've gotten to the point where in those situations I just kind of just ignore it, and I just stop talking, and I just walk away.
I suppose you've got to learn not to take it personally either.
Yeah, I'm still trying. I'm very
Yeah, it's hard when someone's yelling at you not to be like, oh, you're attacking me, because they are. Like, you're not like the reason they're angry.
I got yelled at because I finished work too early.
Oh no. Yeah. So is it hard to have that separation between like when you're at work and when you're at home, because they've got your number and they can call you at any time?
Yes. Honestly, like when I'm after hours, I don't have to pick up as well. But I do get like some Saturdays where I want to sleep in, but I get a call at like 9 o'clock, and that just ruins my sleep. Sometimes it's like I choose not to respond to them until Monday, but some patients they'll keep calling, and if it's super urgent they'll send me a message, and then obviously if something's that urgent I can't ignore it. So yeah, it does become difficult to separate work and personal life.
Yeah, it must. I feel like it's pretty reasonable to wait till Monday, but then it's like, because it is medical issues, sometimes there is something like they need right away.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's sometimes like, I think I had a patient, he had some sort of issue, and I think he started a new drug, and he didn't know what to do with the trial medication, because sometimes there could be certain interactions and I won't know what they are, so I have to contact the doctor as well and get back to them. So it'll be like situations like that that's like a bit annoying.
Yeah, so you're like the main communication channel for them in between like medical staff as well.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like this role is kind of similar to like a personal assistant. You're just like the middle person. Yeah.
So you mentioned organizational skills, and we've talked about communication. Are there any other skills that you really need in your role?
I would say those two are the main ones. Can't actually think of any right now. Do
you learn a lot of like the data entry, and that like do you have to do like statistics and stuff? Do you learn all that on the job?
No stats.
Okay, that makes it appealing to some people.
I was really bad at stats during uni. All the research was too much. But there's no stats, just data entry. You don't really have to understand the data as well, but you do have to understand a little bit about the disease. And I think it's just more so you have a better understanding of how your patients are feeling, and what's actually happening when when some of the results go up or down, like if it's good, bad. But yeah, I think that's just a big difference with research and everything.
Yeah, it sounds like they're very different, like careers, like, or like pathways to take.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like I didn't need this degree to do this job, because it's completely different. But I do know that at RMIT they focus more on clinical trials more than Monash. I feel like Monash is a lot of research.
Yeah, I suppose that's because MIPS is like on campus and we're interacting with a lot of researchers. It's pretty easy to be like, okay, here's a lot about research.
Yeah, they don't really teach you about trials. I think I've only had like one lecture on it. I don't know about you guys.
I think we have like entire unit now based on clinical trials.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Have you started it or have you done it yet?
Yeah, it's a second year unit. So basically we learn about like the phases of clinical trials, different procedures, and this year we're able to like listen to some interviews by one of the lecturers with other people in various similar pharmaceutical industries as well. So it was quite interesting to learn from a different perspective, like within the industry itself.
Oh, that's so good. I kind of wish we had that as well. I came in knowing like nothing. I was like, oh, yeah, I know what phase 1, 2, and 3 is. Like, I'm all good.
Yeah, still find out a lot about like your role. Because definitely don't know like the specific positions within clinical trials a lot. Like we know about like how they run and stuff like that, but not so much about who does what. So it's been great to be able to like hear that from you.
Yeah. And it's a lot. When I learned about it and when I started working, it was just completely different. Like I didn't know what I was in for. It was just a bit interesting to see how it actually runs compared to, you know, what you actually think. Or maybe you don't even think about it because I didn't.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, anyway.
So what do you think is like the most enjoyable thing that you're able to have at your job right now? Is it like interacting with the patients or is it something else?
I'd say it's both interacting with some patients and the work environment is quite good as well. Yeah.
Is it like a very collaborative environment?
Yeah, like everyone helps each other out and management is quite good. There's always a lot of birthday celebrations each month and then
wow.
and then they actually do they started doing MasterChef, but like a bake-off every month. So they kind of like, it pulls you away from the job and, you know, it's just, it gives you a break.
Yeah. It's nice to have that camaraderie like in the same environment.
Yeah. And I know like a lot of workplaces like don't have that sort of treatment. So I think I got pretty lucky.
It definitely makes the job more enjoyable to have that. So are there like positions for you to move into from your current role? Like will you advance in the clinical trials area?
Yeah, so it'll be, you can advance, but it's more or less the same role. I think it's ranked by grade, so there's grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think the higher you go, there will be more difficult trials. And I guess you could also become a team leader and that sort of stuff. But you could also, this is just one branch of trials. Like I said before, there's also a clinical research associate, and that's a lot of computer work, and pretty much no patient contact at all.
Is that related to your work in terms of like clinical trials area, or is it like completely separate?
For a research associate, or it's related in a way. Like they do come on to our site and they check everything, and we do communicate a lot with them, because we, like when there's a new patient or, you know, if something's happening or if I need clarification on the protocol, like they're the person I go to. So it is kind of related.
Yeah. Actually, just to sum it all off for our episode, what would you give in terms of advice for upcoming graduates, especially for people studying with a pharmaceutical science degree and they're unsure about whether they want to venture into the clinical trials area?
Well, I think it's always best to talk to whoever you can. I know that's what I did, because I did have a dilemma of, you know, should I leave PhD and try this, or like, will I regret it? So it's good to talk to a lot of people, even, you know, if you haven't met them or anything. It's always best to reach out. And I think a lot of people are more helpful than you actually think. I think just if you're thinking about it, just go for it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't hurt to try the career pathway, and there's always like you can change or you can stay in it. There's always like a lot of options.
Yeah, and I feel like you never know until you try it anyway. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us today. Definitely learned a lot about what it's like to be a clinical trials coordinator and like what actually happens in a clinical trials and the jobs to do with that. So thank you so much for helping us like learn about that today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
To conclude the episode, we wish to acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nations on whose land we are gathered today. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. For those listening who may be based elsewhere, we pay our respects to the traditional owners of the land from wherever you may be listening from. We especially welcome any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people listening in today.